What's one pivot that changed your life and one that you're still working up the courage to make?
Because we can push you. We can be
can
your
push you.
cheerleaders. We will. Alex will say yes.
Alex
jump
will
in,
say, quit your job.
and I will say no. Make a plan first and wait at least 100 days before you have it all laid out before you make that change.
Yeah.
But together we can help you.
Yes. Okay, I love it. Oh, wait, my mic.
Get it together.
Get it together.
This episode of Ladies Who Lead is brought to you by Dream Realm Pictures, our go-to team for turning big visions into beautiful, high-impact videos. Whether you're a business owner, nonprofit, or just someone with a story to tell, Dream Realm helps you bring it to life with style, heart, and strategy. They've helped us craft a podcast that looks and feels professional without losing any of our personality. And trust me, that's saying something. If you're tired of generic content and ready to make something that actually connects with people, visit dreamrealmpictures.com and tell them Ladies Who Lead sent you.
Okay, Meryl, start us off. What does it mean to pivot? That's what we're talking about today. Permission to pivot.
For me, in the business world and education world, it's always meant that we're going to change everything. Stop what you're doing. Hold on. Everything you've done before, stop. We are making a full-on 180 and changing and moving in a different direction. And that's usually when I roll my eyes because I'm like, oh, so all the hours of everything before this did not matter and we're moving somewhere else. But in my personal life, the word pivot is a little different. It doesn't necessarily have that negative feel to it or that negative vibe. And it's something I've done time and time again. I've never really labeled it pivot, but we've made changes. We've said, hey, this isn't working. Let's change it. But I've never really viewed it as negative then. So I think that word just really is a word that you can roll your eyes at or a word that you can grasp and make a change when you need to.
It's all about mindset. So this was something that you brought up because this episode idea was yours.
Yes.
And it is because you've made some significant pivots. I'm working on pivots, and that we knew that if we struggled with this, that probably some of you guys did too.
Yes, I've never labeled it. Hey, I'm going to pivot now.
I'm going to make a change.
I'm going to make a change.
Normally it ends up that I'm going, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? And is this the worst idea? But really, it's me getting ready to make a change.
So for me, in my life, my pivot's always been around my family, my boys. My husband and I decided long ago that we wanted to be present with our kids before they went to school. And that's not always easy to do when you're managing work. Like, how does that work? How do we both work? How do we be present in our kids' lives together? So most of my pivots or changes have been around what is going to bring my family balance. And I'm saying that not to say that should be what you pivot around. I'm saying that because that's what I think about and what I plan around when I'm making a change or thinking of doing something different. Everyone has their own reasons and their own priorities. Yeah. And that's important too. Like, just because this is my priority, my thing that I want to focus on, that doesn't mean like you should do it too. But I do think that everyone should have the freedom to pivot.
I agree. I will say, I think that it really has to do with what's your true north. And so for me, I wavered early in my career on what was going to drive me. So at the beginning of my career, I wanted to do the climb, like the corporate climb, and that I saw positions as whatever the next thing was going to be. And that once I started to get on the ladder, once I got on the ladder to do that climb, I realized I don't even know if I like it. And that I was giving up time with my kids and I was giving up time with my family. And I didn't really feel like what I was doing served me or my family, and that I didn't know better. Did
you feel like you had to stay there though, because that's what you chose and that was the path that you were on?
Yeah. When I was younger and the boys were younger, I for sure felt like I had committed to something, which now it is silly now thinking back on it to me, but I did feel like, okay, I committed to this and this is what I'm going to do. And what would people think if I just jumped ship basically and did something different? Now I have done some serious ship jumping and I'm really thankful for it now in hindsight, but every single time it felt like the worst idea that I could have.
But what pushed you to feel like that you could make that change, that you could make that pivot? I mean, for me, like I know where the permission came from, and a lot of it, and I say permission, but that's just a term that I'm
Yeah.
using loosely because it's not permission. Like
Yeah.
anyone can do it. But I was raised in a family where my parents were very much, you don't like what you're doing, you don't like the path you're on, then change. You can be whatever you want to be. I mean, within reason. It's not just like jump ship and
Yeah.
go.
Which
But I always felt that freedom of, hey, if this path isn't working, take a look at something else.
yeah. Which I think that you had mentioned about something being generational before when we were talking about this on our own.
Mhm.
And I think that the generational change from the generations before us to now
Mhm.
is that it did seem like before basically our parents and their parents did you stay with a company, you stay in a career for 30 years until you retire with the company that you started with. And that's so foreign to me now to think about doing one same thing for 30 years. But that when I look back in my career, there are things that I've done that are consistent through that whole thing. But that it took me the first freaking 14 years of my career to come up with what do you want to be when you grow up? Because that's what I was like, okay, I think I want to do this. And then I'm like, that kind of sucks actually. But I spent 12 years doing it. But now what do I do? And that it is nerve wracking to say, should I just do something different? And I know we both just did this like recently within our
Yes.
lives.
Yes, and I feel like what you're saying is true. Like I had that example of, my dad was with the fire department for 30 years. His dad before that was committed to his career. And you see this like longevity in the career, but that's not really how it is anymore. People don't stay with one company for years and years and years. Although I've been teaching for a million years.
Yeah.
I don't want to say how long
And I'll
because
feel-
I started when I was 8.
She started when she was 8.
But although I've been teaching, what that looks like has been different
Yeah.
throughout time based on when my kids were little. I went to school for an online charter school so I could be present and could be home. But there were sacrifices that came with that too. So even though I stayed with teaching for 20 plus years, what it looked like has been different all
Yeah.
throughout the course. It wasn't just in the classroom teaching full time.
So I've been an advocate for a while, and basically anyone that's ever worked with me knows this, that if you're unhappy, you better change it because I hate to work around people that are unhappy. And so usually when I had coworkers or team members that were miserable and seemed miserable and hated their job, I was like, what on earth are you doing here? And that I judged them. I thought about this leading up to our episode. I judged them because I was like, why don't you just do something different? And that the reason that I judge them is because I wasn't thinking through that choice with empathy. And somebody said something that really changed how I thought about this. And they said that we judge other people by their behavior, but we judge ourselves by our intention. And if we
So true. So true. Like I know my intention.
yeah. And so I
Don't
judge
always know
myself way
yours.
more
Yeah.
kindly than
Yeah.
I do a stranger.
Yeah.
And so when I'm saying, oh my gosh, if you're so miserable, why don't you just leave? To think about the fact that that's so scary that if this is the job that you've had and you don't know if you're going to be losing that, you don't know what to do next or where to apply or even how to start, that is such a scary thing. And so probably the people that I've judged don't know that I judged them, but I'm apologizing anyway.
We judge, but we don't tell we're judging.
Yes. So I hope that's what we will get to today. So the reason that we called our episode Permission to Pivot is not because you need permission from outside, but you need to be able to give yourself permission to pivot when it is the right thing for you.
And it might be that it's not that you're leaving a negative.
I'll use an example that
Yes.
I've heard. And now which we don't have trains, so it's not a very good train example. But the idea is that if you got on a train, but we'll say if I put it in my Google Maps.
What do you mean we don't have trains? I get stopped
we have
by a
trains
train
here?
every single day.
Okay.
Every morning I get stopped by a train. We
I got
have trains all around us.
You're right. You're right. They definitely impact our drive. Because I saw someone say, if you get on a train and you realize that you're heading in the wrong direction, do you just stay on the train the whole time? Or once you realize you're going the wrong way, you get off?
But if you're afraid of what people think, like some people are
they're gonna judge
overthinkers.
me?
If I get off now and I've been riding this train for how many blocks, how many miles, and I get off now, what are people going to say? They're going to know that
They're gonna
I
know
was
that I messed up.
I was going the wrong way, and now I'm making a correction.
Which I think about the fact. So most of the things that stop me from making a decision or making a change is a fear of what are people gonna think about why I did that? Why they're gonna judge? Oh, it's so embarrassing. They're gonna think I didn't think through it. And what we have to know is that people are not thinking about you.
Wait, what?
Other
Because
people are not thinking about you for the most part. And that if they judge you in a negative way, who cares?
well, right. And I also feel like sometimes we think, oh, they must be judging me
Yeah.
constantly in a negative way. And I don't do that to people. I don't
Me
like look
either.
around and look at them under a microscope and be like, hey, what are you doing with your life? Are
Yeah.
you moving in the right direction? Are you going to change? I don't think that about people. I admire people for making changes or for doing something and taking a chance, even if it doesn't work out.
Yep. So I got a humbling lesson. It was humbling and built my ego all at the same time, which that's a pretty good.
What?
I know. I love talking about me. But I did get, this was like a lesson that I hadn't thought about. I just got a thing a couple days ago, and it was an invite for an interview to be featured in a magazine. And like the feature is Most Inspiring Voices. And that it said in the email that this person recommended me for it. And I was basically like shocked when I saw who it was, because I felt like that person knew me during a time that was definitely in a time of transition, but a transition time that I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like not sure what direction to go in. And I felt really like up in the air and squirrely, basically. Like I felt like that person couldn't have seen me as anything other than a little bit scrambled and kooky. And instead, they saw me as an inspiring voice. They saw
Yes.
something that I didn't. I've actually hesitated in even talking to this person because I was embarrassed about the period of time that they knew me, because I was like in flux in between stuff. And then to know that I've been carrying around this a little bit of shame, a little bit of embarrassment about, "Oh, this person knew that I was in this time that I was mixed up and didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up," which is what I was. And that they saw something completely different.
But that kind of goes with, it's not our job to worry about what people think about us. And I know that's easy to say, but just to your point, here you had this whole like idea of what this person thought about you.
Yeah.
You had feelings about it that probably hung with you.
Yeah.
And it's not at all what the person thought about it. So we really should stop holding on to those feelings of what we think other people think of us.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever pivoted with confidence?
Right now in my life, I feel like I'm the most confident in pivoting. And it is because I had like a epiphany a couple months ago. What I was trying to do was fit my idea into what I understood like the options were for our future. So like I'm going back into real estate, and that I saw some of the people that were successful in real estate or kind of doing what I wanted to do. And I was basically using it like a multiple choice. Let me pick which one of these versions of a realtor I'm going to be.
What
Um,
about the version of you?
Yeah, exactly. So that was like the big point that changed, was that I said, this was part of the joke about I almost died, so now I can do whatever I want. That I felt like, what would I do if I got to pick completely from scratch? How would I do it? I built that. And this is the first time in my life I can confidently say that I feel so at ease and confident about what I'm doing, because it's not that I know 100% it's going to succeed, but that I know 100% it's authentic and that I'm doing it the right way that feels right for me, that feels right for my family. I think I got to be selfish and say that I think having a good buddy by my
Hey.
side makes it a lot easier to be confident in that. That's true.
No, it's true. It is true. I will say I've pivoted quite a few times, whether it's like choosing what school I want my kids to go
Mhm.
to, or what career I'm going to choose, or where we're going to live. But as far as pivoting confidently, I don't know that I ever have. Like, my thing is I plan and I research, and then I'll ask and I'll prepare and I'll research again and
Yeah.
I'll lay it all out.
My sister
Like,
does that.
way overthink. I'll have my pros and cons list. So when I do make a change, it's been a while. I've researched it. I feel prepared. I don't know that I would ever say I felt confident, like this is absolutely the best decision, but I feel confident in the fact that I've done the research, I've put in the time, I've done the prep, I've done the
Yeah.
planning. I don't know if it's going to work 100%. All I can go off of is, for me, I'm a planner and I have to do that. And I have to feel like I know exactly what I'm going into.
Yeah.
So doing this podcast is a little different because I don't know what I'm getting into. This is way out of my comfort zone.
But
in life, I'm safe. We'll explore and we'll take challenges, my husband and I, and as a family. And moving here was a huge pivot for us. And that necessarily wasn't like, oh, life is so bad where we're at. It's just, no, we need to change. We want to change. We want to do something different. But that was research. We had plan A, B, and C if this didn't work out. You know, we had it all on paper. We knew exactly what we're getting to. And we were committed. That's the other thing. When we made our move here from California to Texas, my husband and I both committed to each other that we're in this. Like, we are going to make this work.
Yeah. I feel like that's the stuff that they never told us before we got married, was because they had the sickness and health, for better or for worse, but they don't have like to move or not to move
stuff. Yeah.
Or how are you going to raise? They don't give you all the options.
What school should our children go to?
Are we going to do private school, public school, charter school? My God.
I had a whole pros and con list for that too. Do we do charter?
Do
we do private? Do we do homeschool? I laid out. Yeah.
Almost every decision I make, as far as like with our family, I go, okay, this is what we're doing.
Oh, no, I have to go down every avenue, explore all of it, interview people who have been there, talk to people, lay it all out. No.
And then I come back and I tell my family, okay, so I've decided that we're going to do this, which luckily my husband gets to be earlier in the conversation, but just barely. Because sometimes I have 1 hour. I'll come up with an idea and I start coming up with all the parts of it. And then by the time my husband gets home, I'm like, oh, I have the best idea. I know what we're going to do.
Mine is, and this is actually something too. Mine is, you saw, okay, let's just talk about it. We were making a post about this podcast and I was writing it and you made fun of me because I was typing it up in notes first. Like, I checked to make sure that I said, I'm too careful. I'm an overthinker. I'm too careful. And she's laughing at me because I'm writing our posts in notes first.
I said,
but that's who I am. Like, I have to have it all planned out.
God,
it has to sound right. I need to read it at least 10 times to make sure I'm not going to embarrass myself sending it out.
Which it sounds like she was writing a dissertation. And let me just tell you that the post was basically like, we're launching this.
In my mind, it was though.
And she was like, to whom it may concern, I would like to bring your attention to the following. With love. And I'm like,
I need to make sure the grammar is correct. I need to make sure, because I don't want people judging me. It's no.
It turned out good, and it was good. But I had to make fun of her. That's part of her.
It's never prevented me from making a change or making a pivot. I did it. It might have taken me 25 hours to get to that point where I say, okay. But you just press the button. You're like, yes. I'm in.
So what was your decision process for when you decided I'm going to step into public service?
So my decision process, coming from where my dad was the mayor during the time of COVID, during a lot of big issues that we were facing, and I was kind of his right-hand person that I was helping him through it. When I moved here, I said, I don't even care who the mayor is. Like, I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know. After being so involved, like, I don't want to know anything. I'm going to bury my head in the sand and not pay attention to anything. That lasted.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. It didn't work out like that.
And then in our neighborhood, some rezoning was happening with our schools. I'm like, oh, hey, I know how we can say what we want to say about this. So I gathered the troops in our neighborhood, told everyone, and it was only like 30 people at that time. It was a pretty small neighborhood because we were just in phase 1. I told everyone in our neighborhood, you're going to go speak at the school board meeting tonight. And they're like, what? I go, nope. You're all signing up. You come in, sign up. And if you're not there on time, I'm signing you up.
Yep.
So we all spoke our piece about the rezoning. And I met our current mayor there because he was there speaking.
So was he mayor pro tem then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I met him. I ended up talking to him about it. He said, hey, there's an opening. You should come join us. Yep. I got involved, started with planning and zoning. And then there became a chance to run for town council. And again, some people encouraged me to do so. And no, I don't want to be involved. But at the same time, our comfort level is being involved in our community. being public servants. My
So
husband was
we're
a police officer.
yeah.
I was
So
a
where some
teacher.
people it would be a huge even somebody that's not necessarily you're not reserved, but just somebody who's like a little more thoughtful and like goes through the steps that was your comfort zone is being involved in the community. And so
It
you
was.
weren't
Yeah.
super stepping out because that's what I kind
Yeah.
of wondered was now that I know you, I was like, dang, how did you make that jump?
No,
But now
you're right. It felt comfort.
Mhm,
I felt comfort there. It felt like in my zone of serving the public
mhm.
and having, I think, helped my dad for so long and seeing what he has done in the town. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And so I hate to say, yes, running for office myself, like that was a big jump for me. Putting my name out there and actually running a race against
Yeah.
someone too.
And you did such a good job.
And that was terrifying. I'm like, I don't know. I don't need my name out there. I'm like, yes, you do.
So where are we going to pivot to next, Meryl? What are we
Pivot.
talking about?
I want to know how your faith has helped you with your decisions, if it has.
It has actually that's such a I'm so glad you brought that up. So it has played a huge role in my decisions. I will say early in my career where I was doing the bouncing around, not sure what I wanted to do when I grew up, I had no faith foundation. And so all of the decisions were really just based off of, what did I think? Which we were really in survival mode. We had 4 little boys that we had early.
I mean, I think I would still be in survival mode.
We
with
are. It's just,
4
we're just way
boys.
more chill. We're just way more chill in survival mode now. It's no big deal. That's a lie, just in case you're paying attention. So I found my faith like probably almost 10 years ago now, and that I didn't know what I was doing with it. So I always kind of joked that
You found it, but you didn't know.
I didn't know how
you
to
didn't
apply
know
it. So it was
okay.
it was like I found
like
the
you
directions.
got it, but like,
Yeah.
where do I go from
I
here?
found the directions and I didn't know how to use them. So now I'm further into it, and that it actually is it's so relieving because where it used to be, do I think that this is the best thing? Do I know everything? Can I check every box? Now I feel like if I am listening to what I feel like I'm being led to do, that it takes the pressure off of me, really, because I feel like I can pray, kind of look for guidance, go to my true north, like I talked about, which is, and for me, it is always, am I serving God? Am I serving my family? Am I serving my community? And that if I can say yes to those 3 things, it's so much easier to be confident about what I'm doing because I didn't have to, it's not all on me. It was really just,
right. It checks the boxes
Yeah.
for you. Like it keeps you on your course.
because it also keeps me from being a biatch. Because as my friend, that sometimes my initial reaction is a little
sassy,
snappy, a little sassy, a little
snappy.
snappy. And that I'm very thankful that I have a kind of barometer for, okay.
I'm laughing because this is a little off topic, but as far as catching yourself and really thinking of that, I'm thinking about when we were in Austin together recently, and we were
Oh my God. Okay, yes.
we were walking. You have to, when you go into the Capitol, and we were there to have all of our meetings and represent our town.
We're there in our
official
as
capacity
elected officials
with all these appointments, like
professionals.
very professional.
Yeah.
And we're walking through the metal detectors, and yours goes off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I looked at you because
So I said,
because I
she
knew
said-
what was coming.
she said, the security lady said, "Oh, maybe it's probably just your badge or a necklace or something." And I started to say, or maybe,
And I looked, and my look,
Meryl did her mother look at me before I could get the words out because what I was going to say, and she guessed it because I said, I
could
stopped.
see
I was
it.
like, oh, never mind. And when we walked away, she goes, I know what you were going to say. And I was like, no, you don't. And you're like, you were going to say, or it could be the gun under my dress. And I was like, that's a good guess. Because
And then I also said, remind me never to fly with you ever. Like we are not going on a trip together
was like
on
a
an airplane
compulsion.
ever because
Yeah.
if you get stopped, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to go on my trip.
Yeah.
I'm not coming back for you.
Which sometimes, so now we'll talk
But-
about, that's the short-term pivot from the dumb thing that you're about to say.
But it goes back into a little self-reflection in the moment and catching
Yes.
yourself.
Oh my gosh. That was funny. That was a good point. So I want to hear about, because you've done a lot of pivots in your life? I want to hear about the one that scared you the most.
Moving
here. Oh yeah,
moving
she
here.
moved from California to Texas.
Moving, and it wasn't just after, but it wasn't the thought of moving here. It was the thought of moving away from all my friends, all my family. We were so rooted there. My husband worked in our community. I worked in our community. Hey, we can do this and we can do this together, and we can show our kids that you can move across different states and start a life and have everything there. So to move somewhere, not know anyone.
Which now I feel like you and I have been friends forever, and we've been friends for 2 years.
I know. Someone asked me the other day, how long have you been friends for? As if we would have been long friends, but 2 years.
But we felt like long friends right after we became friends.
And I often say, what would have happened if we never met?
I have thought about that so many times. This is why we did the podcast also. I think that if we had not made friends with each other, that my life would be different right now. I think that the direction that I'm going in right now, the confidence that I have to make for us to launch and do a podcast together.
I like a podcast, me talking in front of I don't even like listening to my voice, and I'm not going to eat the microphone like you do. But
I wanted to, because I love the microphone.
I love the microphone. I don't need any of that. But we had the idea, but you also, like, I would still be planning it out, to be perfectly honest. Like, I would still be planning our perfect podcast, our perfect launch. It would take me a year to plan it. It would be well orchestrated, but I wouldn't actually launch it.
Okay, let's talk about the difference.
You pushed the button and made me do it.
All right, but there's something to that, because you just pointed out something. So we had this idea in June of 2024.
Yeah.
Is when we started talking about
a year ago.
Let's talk about the difference, because I'm going to tell you how we ended up here today versus what I did. So I am green means go. Start. So when we first talked about it, I did 500 things in an hour. Like, basically.
Yes, you did.
I was like, here's a logo, here's everything. Here's social accounts.
We can do like this. Bam, all the emails coming in, all the texts coming in. Here's your password for this.
So if we had done it my way, we would have been everything would have been different. So if we had done it just your way, then maybe we would still be planning. We wouldn't have started. The balance came from the two of us together. We had green means go, and you had yellow means let's plan.
Like, slow down, Alex. Slow it down. Let's think it out.
You're the reason that we have notes. You're the reason we have notes this time. So we're not just going all squirrely. And so the reason that I think friendships like this are so valuable is that the two of us together is exactly what needed to happen to make this happen.
And I think, like, I go back to when I first met you, I could have easily been intimidated, or, wow, she really knows what she's talking about. So she's beautiful and all these things. And I
going, what else?
That's it.
Continue. We have plenty of time.
But instead, I'm like, no, it's better to put our strength together. And when you know your weaknesses too, and like maybe what you're not as strong at, and you see someone who embodies those things, it's like, build on that, complement each other. And I think that's what we do.
Yeah, I do too. And that you also ground me sometimes, because I do feel
like, nope,
I need someone. So I'm gas pedal down to the ground, and I do need someone to reel me in sometimes. But that I also think that you need someone to light you up.
I do.
You need someone to go, shut up. Don't talk about it anymore. Just do it. Just go.
I do. And there's been multiple times where you're like, that's not your problem. I'm like, oh, you're right. It's not. Like, I've never let it go. Don't think of that.
Which, if this is something that I say in every episode, it still won't be too many. Don't take other people's problems on as your own. Don't take other people's opinions on as your own. Don't give other people free access to how you feel about yourself and about your life and about your decisions.
So going with that, when you pivot, I think so much of it, we think about, what will they think? They being whoever it is at the time. They, whether it's coworkers. And I can remember a time where I applied for a different job, and I loved who I worked with, but it was an opportunity to do something different. And some people had a hard time understanding that. Like, why would you leave this? I'm like, because I said I would never say no to an opportunity that came my way that made sense to me. How do you know when to let go of people's opinions? Like, letting go of it and making that decision for yourself. How do you do that?
I think that this is one of the balance things. And I know we said that our podcast is going to end up being all about balance because that's what this whole life is about. So the example that we gave where I'm always like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. That I don't think through enough. Sometimes I don't think through enough of the what could go wrong.
I could tell you everything that could go wrong because I have that written down on my list.
So what I do is I make sure that I talk to, it's usually my dad. I talk to someone who will help me think through what the other side, what are the cons, not even just pros and cons, but what are you not thinking about? Because I go, this could work. That sounds cool. This is exciting. Let's do it. And that I don't really want to have the wind taken out of my sails,
Right.
but that I need some grounding. And so I will talk to my dad basically and say, okay, this is what I want to do. This is all the things that I'll give him the whole excited spiel.
So that's interesting you say that, being how different we are about how we make decisions. But I also go to my dad for a lot of things.
There's our life hack is
ask your dad.
I hope you have a good dad. Ask your dad.
If you don't, ask someone.
Ask a dad.
Ask a dad. No, or ask someone who you know is that balance.
Yeah.
Because you don't, like you said, you don't want to go to someone that's going to be like, Alex, that's a crazy idea. What are you thinking? Stick to the plan. But you also don't want to go to someone that's, quit now, go.
Yeah, which I'm that friend. So if you need a friend that's going to say, just quit.
But if you need that boost, that extra boost, she's a great one to ask because she'll be like,
girl,
do
quit.
it. Do it.
Quit right now. I'll come pick you up.
Do it.
I'll come pick you up.
Let's go to the pool.
There's probably no downsides to quitting. Let's do it now. I'm bringing the margarita mix. So you should have a friend to balance that against.
Yes, but I think that makes sense. It's like finding someone who you trust that is that balance that can tell you what they think are the cons of doing it, but can still be supportive of and see the advantages of moving on or making a switch.
Let me tell you a trick to finding friends like that. Because what you want is a friend that can be like a trusted and valued kind of advisor. Mm. And the way that you get that friend is you be that friend.
Mm.
That you be the one that is safe for people to talk to about ideas and bounce stuff off of.
Yeah.
Because what you get, what you give. And so I try to give people in my life, I try to give them what I really want. I want people to care about what I'm saying. I want people to be honest and I mean, I really like caring. I want people to care. We all do. That's not it. We all want people to care about us and value us, but that I try to make sure that the people around me know that they are valued and that they can come and talk to me because I know that once I need that back, I have a group of people around me.
Right. It is so true. What you give is what you get in return. And it might not always be the answer you're looking for, but it's the honesty. And I feel so fortunate in my life that I have people like that to call, family and really good friends, and pick up the phone. Hey, and they'll be truthful, but not mad, not angry, not like disappointed or anything, but they can speak the truth and still be supportive.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a correct time to pivot?
No.
So how do you know when to do it?
I think that you don't. That's one. So I think that if you're waiting for every single sign to turn green and
which is funny because I would still be waiting if I had my choice.
But
I am flexible enough to know I can't wait till everything is perfect and everything is aligned. And there's no one that's going to fly down and tell me, hey, now's the time. Now's the best time to pivot.
So I'll give you an example. So in Maui, there is a place I think it's called Black Rock, but you can jump off Black Rock. So you have to go through all this stuff to climb up to Black Rock. And it's like on lava rock. It's I'll see if I can find a picture of it.
That would never be allowed in my family.
Oh, we loved it.
No.
We did it.
My dad was a fireman. That's dangerous.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was definitely dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Okay, so we climb all the way up
I know
there.
what you're talking about. We stayed in Kanapali, so I've seen it. I've watched the people jump off of it.
Yeah. So this is how you know when it's time to pivot.
Yeah.
So we got to the top. I'm looking over ledge. It's my turn. You have to wait for your turn. I get to my turn and I'm like, I don't think I want to do it. So my options were turn around and climb back down the lava rock the way that I came, which sucks, or do the jump that I planned on doing. And I was like, so for me, the reason that I made the jump, the thing that pushed me was I came here to jump off this damn rock.
So you had a
I
plan.
planned
You were
it.
committed.
I was committed. I
Yes.
planned. I'm coming up here. I'm going to jump off this rock. And I want that. It's part of my trip. I'm going to do it. And so I said, all right, you said you were going to do it. Let's do it. And I jumped off and it was all fine. And actually, when I jumped off, I saw a sea turtle underwater and I thought that was super cool. I felt like that was a reward for jumping. But that I think that the answer is there is no perfect right time to jump. You know?
I agree with that 100%. How would you know? There's probably better times and worse times to do it, but you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
And I have joked about not making this podcast about my stroke, and I don't even want to barely talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it
But here we are.
I feel like I looked down the barrel of I might not survive this.
Yes.
I had to think really seriously about the fact that I might not be able to say goodbye to my kids. I might be done parenting them, that this could be the end of my life. So like if that was the beginning of who has to plan my funeral. But that I had to think about the fact that my legacy might be over. This could be the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that one thing that really changed. So I've spent a lot of the first 36 years wondering, what are people going to think about what I do for a living or how I am or whatever. If you guys had to say bye to me that day, none of y'all are going to be like, oh, remember what she did for a living?
No.
Remember what her job was? What was my job when I had my stroke? Do you know?
Nor do we care.
Yeah.
We didn't care about
that. You cared about how I made you feel.
Yeah.
The impact that I had on on your lives. My kids cared about the kind of mother.
You touched on something there, the legacy. Like, what legacy are you leaving behind? And for me, a lot of it comes down to, what example am I setting for my own kids? You know, talk is cheap. Like, you can say those things, but when they actually see their parents, see their mom, see people they love making these choices, being intentional about it, making these decisions that require kind of courage to do, some guts to do sometimes, and just make it happen. That makes me proud.
The most feminist thing that we can do as mothers of boys is show those boys what a strong, confident woman looks like, and that your legacy does not look like your LinkedIn.
Right. It's authentic. They're seeing us living it. We're still doing it, and they're seeing that. We're there. What's the difference, though, between quitting and pivoting? Or do they go hand in hand?
I'm like, no, we're asking you guys. We don't know.
We actually don't know the answer to that question.
So I do think that there is a difference, but that it depends on why you're doing what you're doing. Basically, one of my first grown-up jobs. And I was like, I hate this, actually. But this is what everyone else is supposed to like. So this is probably...
Right. This is the picture that I'm supposed to fit into. This is the mold that I'm supposed to fit.
I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing. This. Isn't this what I'm supposed to do? But I hated it. And so I thought for a while that maybe I'm just not good at basically anything. I felt like I know that I probably have skills, but that this sucks. I don't know. This doesn't feel like it. And so I quit. And that now I'm really thankful that I did it. But at the time, it was stupid. And so this is where I'm talking about the way you frame it later on. You could reframe it, rebrand it. But
so you'll be shocked to know that I quit as well, but not without a well thought out plan and a backup plan and another backup plan.
I didn't even tell my husband. I decided in one day that I was going to quit. Like after I already went to work. I went to work and I was like, oh God, I can't do it. I cannot face coming here another day. And so I put in my notice and quit, and then had to go home and tell my husband I quit my job. And we had 4 toddlers.
And there's the difference between you and me and how we handle quitting and pivoting.
Yeah.
Quitting and pivoting for me go hand in hand, because I would not quit something unless I had a pivot and a backup plan all ready to go. But not to say that your way is wrong.
Well, it probably is. I think that there's a balance.
There is a balance, but like I could get stuck though too. I have a tendency to get stuck and not take that jump, not go jump off.
Yeah.
The rocks.
So let me tell you about a very recent quitting over pivoting. And it was a quit that I thought was a pivot. That took a long, slow pivot.
I want to hear this.
Okay, so
do I know this? Do I know about this?
It's from the job that I had before. Okay. Okay, so I had a job that I actually really loved. I was working at a specialty animal hospital and I really did love it. And I decided, and this was kind of the same way where I wasn't unhappy with my job, but I decided I'm going to go back into real estate. And instead of, which I'm only going to say this so my dad hears it and then I'll never repeat it. My dad was right. He told me to chill out and figure out some other stuff first, but I didn't. So
So you went to your person, but then you ultimately did not take the advice of your
told him
person.
after I did it because I knew
Mhm.
that he would say no.
So you completely avoided your person
Mhm.
because
So
you knew what the answer was going to
yeah, so I was like,
be.
okay,
Interesting, Alex.
I'm gonna go into real estate. I'm gonna quit. And so I gave basically like multiple, I think it was like 3 months notice. I gave extensive notice because I loved the people that I worked with, but I was like, I already know what I want to do. I gave my notice about 3 months before, like 90 days before. And so when I was finally done, I didn't do anything for my new career during that 3 months notice that I had. And I ended my job and I told them all, I'm going into real estate. And I told everybody, I'm leaving this job to go into real estate. And then I didn't go into real estate. I did nothing because I was like, let me just figure out now. Let me start from scratch and figure out what it's going to be like.
No, that is terrifying right there to me.
It was not
But
smart,
again,
but
I admire you being able to do that.
So now I've figured it out now, but
That's
a
good.
little while later, let's talk about that. Let's talk about why to think through the pivot versus the quit. Because now I think, well, as we're talking, I think I'm coming up with the answer
What
of
is
the
the
difference
answer?
between quitting and pivoting. So if I had not just,
Or what is your answer?
yeah, if I had not just haphazardly quit my job with no plan, then I would have had insurance when I had my stroke. I would have had a plan for what to do next. And instead, I was like, we'll figure it out. But life happens a little faster than you can figure it out sometimes. So this is where the quitting versus the pivot is that the intention was there. And I did eventually pull it off. But that if I had,
There were some things in between that needed attention to.
and that if I had
before.
weighed the pros and cons and kind of the thinking through it a little bit more.
I can show you how to put it down on paper.
So I think that's where the balance
The balance.
is that you have to have friends that support you, that have different perspectives. Because I think that if I had come to you and said, this is what I think I want to do, I think you would have said, okay, what are you going to do next? Or what does that look like? Or whatever. And instead, I had to fall down a mountain basically to figure out the next steps instead of planning it out ahead of time.
But I think we can agree, even though we have a different approach to how we maybe take on life, how we take on all kinds of things,
Yeah.
like our approach is so different, our personalities are so different.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be the bravest thing that you can do
Mhm.
is pivot. How you get there sometimes doesn't always matter. Finding that balance is a good idea, but still being able to do so is, I think, courageous and brave.
Yeah, I agree. And that I'd rather be courageous and brave and fall on my face and pick myself back up and do it again than not do something because I was too scared.
Right. And sometimes those pivots that you think maybe aren't the smartest, and you probably knew it wasn't
I was
the
like,
smartest thing to just
it'll be fine.
quit. And I'm fine. I'm going to be a realtor again.
And that once I quit and I was home for the first week, I was like, wow, maybe I should have thought another second about this.
But sometimes making those changes and finding the courage to do so can open doors that you've never imagined.
I will say that I do a lot of second guessing of what I've done. And
which is crazy that you say that, because from the outside looking in, it seems so solid. This is my decision. I'm jumping in. I'm going for it. I know what I'm doing.
No, I spend a lot of time going, oh my gosh, was this dumb? Like, why did I do? I actually do it all at once. This is how I make up for it. You
do it after the fact,
all at once, all at one time.
I do it all. I preload it all before that.
No, I make the decision. I make the jump, and then in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh my god, I've ruined our lives. Maybe, I don't know. It hasn't happened yet, but it could be. What are all the ways it's gonna go wrong now that I've done it? But this is like the balance. It's like balancing faith with when to pivot and when not to pivot. Is that seemingly like dumb, reckless decision to just quit and I'll figure it out later at the time? What it ended up doing was it let me be in a place where when I had the stroke, when I was recovering, And when I was doing this, I was able to only focus on recovering from my stroke,
Which was so important.
which was
And
it was
had
the
you not
change.
made that
Yeah,
jump, you wouldn't have been in that position.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
that's a thing where when you talk about life or faith, wherever
Yeah.
your sort, so for me, it's my faith in God and his plan for me, but that wherever your direction comes from, that if you kind of leap with faith, even though it seems scary at the time, that it might be exactly what needed to happen. Because
And
I
where
also think,
exactly you need to be at the
yeah,
time.
because I feel like to get to where I am now, to where I'm going back into real estate with a brand that I love, in a direction that I love, and that we're doing the podcast together, and that we're in a really cool place as friends. My marriage is better because we've made this change and we had this time. So all
Yeah.
these different things that seemed like I was going off the path and it was
And maybe
wrong.
it was the path that you were supposed to be
Yeah,
on all along.
it's crazy.
Kind of everything happens for a reason.
Mhm.
So I know you've researched and read about some famous people that have made pivots. And I found it so interesting. Oh, all right.
It
Let's
gives you
pivot.
some confidence to pivot. Yep.
Yeah. So let's hear it.
Okay. So tell me what you think about when you hear the name Vera Wang.
I think wedding dresses right away. Wedding dresses, but I also love her line of clothes that she had at Kohl's.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
clothes, the designer,
right.
You don't think of her as a competitive Olympic figure skater?
No.
Well, that's what she started as, and that's what she hoped she would be known for at the time, and that it didn't work out. So she pivoted. She worked in fashion for Vogue for 17 years, but not as a designer.
Wow.
And then when she was in her 40s, I think 40, she couldn't find a wedding dress that she liked for her own wedding. So she designed one, and that's how she got started. So she was in her 40s after she thought her future was going to go one way and it went a completely different way. And now that's what she's
And
known
thank
for.
goodness it did, because I
Mhm.
really loved her line at
Yeah.
Kohl's.
I've tried on some of her stuff at David's Bridal.
Wow.
We'll see.
Okay, who else? I know you have more.
I have so many more, but how many more hours do we have on our podcast?
Right.
So Julia Child is one that I love. And she is known for cooking. She basically shaped how I cook. And she didn't even learn how to cook until she was in her 30s. And she didn't even start in her first show, which was like a little basically like PBS kind of show at the equivalent at the time, when she was in her late 30s. And that now that's what she is known for. And she's known by freaking everyone about it. But so while I was doing my cool research on stories from history, you met someone in real life with a pretty cool pivot story. Tell us about that.
I would be remiss if I did not mention it. This man had an impact on my entire family. Like my boys, I was nudging them, like, listen to what this man has to say. His name is Rocco Dion Williams. And we had the privilege of having a tour from him at Texas Motor Speedway when NASCAR was in town. And this man, I could tell right away when he started giving his tour, I'm like, there's something more to this guy than just like giving the tour. Like there's something special there. Then little by little, he started to tell his story. And as he gave us his tour, also, everyone knew this man. Everyone was walking by, waving hello, saying hi, and he was waving back. I'm like, there is more to this guy than just that. He began to tell us his story about how he played football in college, then wanted to play in the NFL. It sounded like his football career wasn't quite working out as planned in the NFL. And at that time, there weren't too many athletic builds that were on the pit crew. And what they were doing is they were testing out how athletes, especially football players, would do as part of the pit crew, which makes sense when you have to be fast and carry these tires and do all the things. He ended up pivoting from his dream to working on the pit crew. He ended up getting hired, and he worked for people like Jeff Gordon, Chase Elliott, made a career. And as he said it, he never worked a day in his life because he loved it so much. He was open to allow himself to pivot, and he did that. And you could just tell by the smile on his face and the respect that he had by everyone that we walked by.
And that's how some of these things happen, is that you get a pretty solid idea of what you think your future is going to look like. And then when it starts to not work out exactly that way, it feels like a failure. And it is not a failure. Which this is probably, they talk about like failing up, but that if you consider the fact that when something isn't going the way that you expected it to go, instead of beating yourself up and going, I failed at another thing,
Mm-hmm.
or "Ugh, I messed that up again." Maybe it's that you're getting set up for what your true calling is, for what your true legacy is. Because now that man's legacy is what he's built. He's changed the way a pit crew looks now, like in NASCAR,
Yes.
right?
And now he recruits other athletes and other people to do what he did for so many years. He started a whole business with this. And like I said, you can tell just by walking through how respected he was. So it's great to have a plan. I'll be the first to get behind that. But it was such a lesson and such a reminder.
Have you ever seen the crumbly rubber bands that are like they've lost their stretch,
Yes.
right? They're like degraded.
Yes.
And the same thing works for us, that if you never allow yourself to stretch and bend and be flexible, then you will lose the ability to stretch and bend and be flexible.
And I think with us, there's proof that we're a balance. You have to find that balance of that stretching and bending and the planning and all of that.
Okay. So if today reminded you of anything, let it be this. Pivoting is not failure. Pivoting is not quitting. It's growth. It's that little nudge inside of you that's telling you don't have to stay where you started. You don't have to be where you are. You can make a change and do something different.
And you don't need permission from the internet. You don't need permission from your peers. You don't need permission from us. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give yourself permission to pivot.
And if you do need permission from us, we're giving it to you. Go ahead.
This is it. You have our permission. Make it happen.
We'd love to hear your pivot stories. Message us, tag us, drop a comment. What's one pivot that changed your life and one that you're still working up the courage to make?
Because we can push you. We can be your cheerleaders. We will. Alex will say yes.
Alex will say, quit your job.
And I will say no. Make a plan first and wait at least 100 days before you have it all laid out before you make that change.
Yeah.
But together we can help you.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. Okay, thank you for joining us on Ladies Who Lead. Until next time,
Keep leading, keep growing, and make sure you give yourself some grace along the way to change.
I love that. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
I love this. Thank you, ladies, for being
Thank
here.
you.
Or I guess there's guys listening too, because I know
Our husbands better be listening.
Our husbands, our
They
dads,
better be listening.
couple other
Dads,
people.
yep.
And all the guys that we send this to and we force to listen to.
Who have supported us along the way. Thank you.
All right.